So you want to upgrade your IEM, but you don't know which one to get because there's just too many of them? Don't worry, I got you. I reviewed over 300 IEMs and made my own as well, and today I'm going to reveal the perfect IEM upgrades for some popular beginner sets that most people have. Starting off, we have the popular Moondrop Chew 2. This is an all-rounder with good balance in the bass, mids, and treble while still being enjoyable and not clinical or boring sounding. Here we're looking for something that prioritizes genre versatility while still being musical and technical enough. At around the same price or sometimes even cheaper, we have the new KZ Duronic, which is a smoother version of the Chew 2 with slightly better separation and more tuning options for a more engaging low end. Then after those, at around $30, we have the 7Hz Alua Ultra for a slight bump when it comes to the detail, the resolution, bass texture, rumble, while having more dynamic contrast but still maintaining a similar tonality but just better and a little bit more musical. Next, after the Ultras, I would personally skip the $100 price range and save up for the $150 to $200 price bracket because that's where you're going to notice a bigger jump when it comes to the performance and where you're going to get a bigger return on investment. However, if you only got around $80, then give the Simgot EG280s and the Simgot EA500LMs a shot. The 280s are going to have a better vocal presentation, a little bit smoother, whereas the EA500LM is brighter leaning, it has more detail, more treble extension, sharper imaging, but also being more energetic and can be more fatiguing than the EG280s. So really up to you depending on what you're looking for. But those aside, under $200 you have a lot of options here. My favorite are the original Ziggurat Odysseys and the new Lecture Australis. Both strike a very good balance of being dynamic, exciting, with some of the best bass texture even under $300, while also being versatile and not aggressively V-shaped. On the other hand, if you want something more balanced, slightly better in the separation, better clarity, less warm, less bassy, more clean, not going to be as dynamic and good in the bass texture, but just better overall balance, then you got your classics like the Simgot Super Mix 4, the Giz Audio Chopin, and the Truth Ear Nova. But moving on to our next price range, at around $300, we have the QER's Astro, the Ziggurat Crescent, and the Dunu 142s, which basically takes the better separation and clarity from the SM4 Chopin the Nova and combines it with the dynamic and musical factor of the original Odysseys and the Australis. Then after those, stepping up to around $500, this is where we unlock the Sony and EST drivers, which provides more treble extension, has that signature smooth misty timbre. At this price range, I would avoid any IEMs that don't have VSTs because I think that's just a bad deal, like the Moondrop Meteors, the Dunu Brain Damage. And if you prefer a better bass texture, more contrast, more dynamics, then that would be the Audio Oracle Mark 3s. Whereas if you want that similar balanced sound like the SM4, then try the High Senior Mega 570 ESTs. And then finally, moving up to around $1,000, this is where I think most people should stop. Anymore, you get huge diminishing returns. If you want that similar balance but still, engaging sound, try the Audio Monarch Mark 4s. And lastly, if you want something more exciting, something that pops out more a bit sharper in the imaging, give the Dunu Glaciers a shot. These are not going to be as smooth and refined in the treble as the Monarchs, but they do feel more energetic and more dynamic overall. Now, as for our second popular IEM, we got the 7Hz Crinacle 02s. These follow a smoother, slightly warmer and bassier sound. Here we're looking for an IEM that's not too fatiguing, but it has great bass texture and also has enough balance in the other regions as well. Starting off at around $20 or less, we have the KZ Caster Bass or the Caster Pro Bass Edition. Both of these have a very good low-end texture. The sub bass is a lot tighter than the Zeros. They have a more cleaner sound, less warm, but overall a little bit more technical resolving as well. Then after those, I would jump right to the Simgot EW300 and skip everything else. You'll see a bigger difference here. The EW300 is still a bassy all-rounder set. You get a lot of tuning options with the nozzles, but you also have the detail to back it up because it is a tri-bridge setup. Overall, very good value for around $60 on sale. Then after the Simgots, I would jump to the Binary Dino Quattro as well as the Ziggurat Cinco Tres. Both of these are balanced but still very bassy. The Dino Quattros have a more mid-bass glide. The Cinco Tres is more sub-bass focus, depending on what you want. Both of these have fantastic bass texture, but also still well balanced, detailed. Next, at around $300 to $350 on sale, we have the Audio High Force, we have the Zenz T Pros, and of course the Ziggurat Australis. If you want the smoothest sounding, the cleanest bassy sound, that would be the high 4s. If you want like a thicker and a richer tonality, that would be the T Pros. And lastly, if you want the best treble detail with very good female vocals as well on top of the bass, that would be the Estrellas. Then finally, at around $850, we have the The Audio Origin, and this is what I would consider a endgame bassy all-rounder set. I really don't think you need anything more than this. This has a very good driver setup, ESTs. You have the bone conduction drivers that actually work. You feel the bounciness, the tightness, but you get this impact, the slam, the tactility, the resolution, the detail. Overall, just a very good all-rounder bassy set. Another option here would be the Feel FX17 if you want something a little bit warmer, less balanced, less sub-bass focus, a smoother bass glide, smoother overall in the sound as well. You get 8 ESTs. I don't know why you need that much, but it's there, I guess. Yeah, these are pretty solid as well for a warmer sound. But moving on, for our next popular IEMs, we got the TangZu Waner 2 and the Tanchjim Bunny or the Zero Ultimas, as well as the Simgot EW100P. Here we're looking for a clean and balanced sound with a vocal-centric approach that is not too energetic, not too bassy, just well balanced but with a vocal pop. At around $40, we have the Confined Clean SV in the black nozzle configuration. This is the best balanced one. Gives you that slight airiness and pop to the female vocals, but still pretty balanced, well layered, detailed, and resolving for the price. On the other hand, if you want something even smoother and offensive, safer than the clean SVs, then these would be Tanchjim for you. They also have the nozzles for the versatility and very good value as well. Then also skipping the $100 price range, I would jump right to the $150 to $200 range. Here we have the Crinacle Daybreaks, we have the Kiwiers Aether, and the 7Hz Timeless 2. If you want the most balanced and all-rounder sound similar to the Tanchjim for you, go for the Crinacle Daybreaks. If you want something with a little bit more air, a little bit more dynamics, go for the Kiwiers Aether. And then lastly, if you want the smoothest sound that scales the best with a little bit more warmness of the sound, go for the Timeless 2 in the silver small nozzle configuration. Then moving up to around $300, I would go for the Binary EP321. These are a better version of the Moondrop Crinacle Dusk, a better version of the Elysian Pilgrim, the Yang Cannon Pros, and also the Performer 5+2. The MEMS drivers are very well implemented, and the overall timbre, tonality, very natural. Next, at around $500, if you want a more vocal-centric approach, give the original The Audio Oracle a shot. Very clean, balanced, but still extended and sweet. Very good for female vocals, just a very solid vocal benchmark in general. And then you have the ZR Arcanus for something more unique, scales better, has more of like a bite and sizzle and more like goosebump feeling to the treble, to the end notes, more unique to the sound, a little bit more different. And then if you want a balanced all-rounder, give the IO Volaire a shot. Smooth, it's good in the timbre, natural sounding, you get ESTs as well. And then the final option here would be the Zen's T Pro SC, which doesn't have ESTs, but still very technical, probably even more technical than the Volaire's. A little bit more dynamic and sharper in the transients, less smooth, but slightly more musical and engaging, but still balanced. And lastly, we have the new Meze Astro, which I can't talk too much about because there is a review embargo. It hasn't come out yet, but it is very natural. It has a fuller but still balanced sound, and also one of the best soundstage on any IEM I've heard. So yeah, very good, stay tuned for that. But moving on to some more popular IEMs, you have the original Moondrop 2 and the original 7Hz Zeros. Here we are looking for something that has a little more upper mid focus, more neutral, bright leaning, more emphasis in the detail and the treble performance. At around $40, we have the new Kiwiers Candeza 2. These are basically a direct upgrade to the Chu and the Zeros. Better performance, smoother, not as jarring and peaky in the overall upper mids and the treble, and overall a little more detailed and just a better version of those. Then as a side grade to those, you also have the KZ Zenith if you want something that has a little bit more of a mid-range focus. And then you have the TangZu Yuxuanji, which has a more airy, clean, and more treble emphasis, more treble focused sound. And you also got the RD T10s, which has a slight V-shape but brighter leaning, more energetic treble response, but very good when it comes to value and detail for $50. Then moving up to around $80 to $100, we're not going to skip it this time. We have the Simgot EA500LM and the EM6L. Basically, if you want a more sparkly and brighter approach to the sound but still full, but not as smooth as the EM6L, go for the EA500LM. Very good value, very close when it comes to performance. The main difference is that the EM6L is going to sound a little bit fuller, slightly more V-shaped, but also pretty bright and extended when it comes to the treble response, and very good for EQ. Now, as for some honorable mentions, we have the EPZP40, which is essentially a slightly more expensive version of the EM6L that's slightly more resolving. I think the EM6L is the better value, but you know, you can make an argument here. It's just that not as big of a jump compared to some other sets later. And then you have the new Hydus MP145 Pro. These are slightly brighter leaning, more vocal centric, also very good when it comes to the performance. And then you have the Knizia 4 from Lecture, very good for female vocals, airy, sweet, brighter leaning, clean. But again, similarly, the detail performance jump isn't huge. And then lastly, you have the Meyer CK2V, which is the brightest and most, I guess you can say, treble head leaning sound here. But the reason why I'm saying that you should skip all these is because, in my opinion, you should go directly to the ZCAT Horizons, because the Horizons are not only very well tuned, it's basically a smoother and more extended version of the EA 500M, but the value you're getting when it comes to detail, you know, resolution, overall technicalities and driver quality is just very good for around $300, maybe even under $300 when it goes on sale. Next, at around $500, we have the TheAudio Hi4 Mark IIs if you want the most technical, most OCD like brightest leading sound while being pretty clean and not overly fatiguing. Like, these are very detailed, but they're not sharp or peaky. Like, it rides that line of being too much but just enough. So if you want the most, you know, detailed, best bang for your buck, give these a shot. On the other hand, if you want something more vocal centric but still has that slight sparkliness, slight brightness when it comes to the upper mids, the treble, still very well balanced, clean, all-rounder sound overall, very good performance, very good value, give the Zen's Top Pro a shot. And then lastly, if you want the smoothest and most airy sound, give the Nice Hack Rockies a shot. These do have the STs, and they are still bright leaning, a little bit fuller than the other two, but not overly bassy when it comes to the low end, well balanced, but just airy and still maintaining the brighter sound. Then lastly, if you want to just jump directly to the endgame set from the original Choose or the 700 Zeros, these would be the Lecture Mystic 8. They are balanced, clean, slightly bright leaning. They have one of the best female vocals period, and very smooth, detailed, but also have the transients as well. They're one of the few neutral bright leaning sets that has the musicality on top of the balance and the technicalities on top. Now, two honorable mentions here would be the BGVP Solomons if you want something even brighter leaning, more focus in the treble, and then you have the Symphonium Crimson for a more V-shaped sound, so basically more low end than the other two, but still energetic and bright leaning when it comes to the treble. Then lastly, we have the darker leaning sets and the bass sets, and starting with the darker leaning scaling sets, we have the full Explore if you're looking for the best bang for your buck when it comes to scaling and just smoothness. It's not going to be fatiguing at all. Bassy, you know, it's going to be full, it's going to be immersive. These are a very good starter dark leaning scaling set. Now, a slight upgrade to those would be the Kiwiers KE4 for more air, slightly warmer sound, a little bit more balanced. The vocals pop out a little bit more, but you still get the scaling overall. You also have the Lecture Australis if you want a slight V-shaped sound to the Explorer. It doesn't scale as well, but you get better bass texture, you get more detail, more resolution. Overall, a more funner and in-your-face kind of feeling. Then lastly, you have the Confined Arner, which is probably the closest to the Explorer, but just a bit cleaner, more vocal-centric, but still dark leaning and pretty full and heavy when it comes to the overall low end and the bass texture. Then moving on from those, at around $500 to $700, we have our endgame quote-unquote scaling darker sets. I don't think you need to spend any more than these. For the warmest and airier sounds, if you're coming from the KE4s, these would be the Symphonium Meteor, very good when it comes to the mid-bass texture, warmer overall, but you still get the airiness, still very smooth, and scales very good. Then if you want something more dynamic, more contrasty, have more transients, better imaging, this would be the Lecture Amber. It basically just has better bass texture, a little bit more bass, impact, and more extension in the treble, while still being very smooth and increasing the detail and technical performance in general. But if you found the Explorer to be a bit too bassy, you like the cleaner sound on the Honor better, then the Effect Audio and the Elysian Pilgrim Noir collab would be the best upgrade there. And then when it comes to bass sets, at around $20, your best option here, even under $100 in my opinion when it comes to value, these would be the KBA Rosfinch. You get the impact, you get the quantity, the bass texture is very good considering that it's only $20, and also very good when it comes to EQ. Overall, just a banger when it comes to value and bass head enjoyment. Then after those, I would skip the $100 to $150 price range and jump right to around $200. Here you're gonna find the HBB Deuce as well as the Punch Audio Portazos. If you're looking for something with a more sub-bass focused sound that's a little bit cleaner in the vocals, smoother, scales better, go for the Deuce. If you're looking for a slightly more exciting sound, you know, slight V-shape, but still very bassy, you know, it's bass head level, the Portazos are going to be a little bit more detailed and a little bit more energetic. And then finally, for our endgame bass headsets, I don't think you should spend any more than this. I would go for the HBB Punch. These have the ESTs. They have very good slam, very good detail, very good balance. In my opinion, I think this is going to be enough for most people. You can also go for the Punch Audio Martellos, which is not going to be as smooth as the Punch. It's going to be slightly sharper, but overall still very good as well. Also a bump when it comes to the tech over the Portazos and the Deuce. Now, some honorable mention at around $1,000 would be the Symphonium Titan. These are basically a slightly more V-shaped version of the Punch. So basically like the Martellos, but a little bit more detailed, but they're also like 3 times more. So when it comes to value, I don't think they're the best. And then you also have the Fat Freak, Scarlet, and the, you know, Maestros. If you want the most quantity, I don't think value-wise they're as good as the Punch. But hey, if you want just more bass, go for those. Those are a option as well. Just not as smooth and refined and balanced as the Punch. That aside, I hope this guide was helpful. Let me know what you're gonna upgrade to, and if you have any of these IEMs, drop your thoughts and a quick review on them. Let us know if they're actually, you know, worth the hype that they're, you know, hyped up to. Anyways, thanks for watching, and I will see you guys soon.
Special thanks to Mr. Dom Q, Zenu, B. Urak, Walker Standard, User, Skasa, Guava Juice Bane, Polly J, Mr. Gorilla, CT Jax, Henry Claudia, Son of a Horse, 777ZK, PM The Wizard, Obi, Treble Well Extended, Matt Herc, TR8, Shembakle, FKSRG, Cousin Fat Fat, Tomat Pat for Shake, Twale, Addy, Michael, Trackstar, Raphael, Ori, Ryan Coffee, Edwin Beta, Tortcog, Effinadim, Chimika, Raj, Javir, Gelbog, Ocean, BC Knight, AK131, MN Gelato, On Balance, Victor Ken, Tuna, JRX, Samuel, John Simon, Kaminari, Archie, Evan, Forrest, Ninja Watcher, Brendan Fish, Slow-Mo Rain, Sir Eisen JJ, Skiller, Alexa, Ali Music, JPLA, Blue Red Nerd, ATGBB, Orlando, Furuto, Sam Z, E Green, Geranium, and Derek. Thank you guys so much for the support.